Hi, this is Bill Patton with USA Tennis Coach, and I am very happy to have Laurie Martin on the show, who is a, a high school tennis coach herself and coaching one of the very best teams in Arizona, and then also a member of the USTA National High School Committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, welcome to the show, Laurie. Glad to have you. How's everything going over there?
Well, it's finally starting to cool down, so we are very excited here in Phoenix.
So, tell us a little bit about how you got into high school coaching.
Well, my oldest daughter was playing high school tennis and she was a senior, and the coach had retired, and she asked me if I would do it. And up until that point, I was just teaching privately in our neighborhood with clinics and groups and semi-privates and privates. I could work around my 4 kids schedule. So I really had no intention of ever getting into the high school space. I had loved little kids and loved working with the little ones in our neighborhood. But when your daughter asks, you do it, right?
Yeah, that's a very dutiful mom. I appreciate that. It's really good. It's the kids first, always. Keep those kids first. So now you've been doing it how long?
This is my 15th year.
15th year. Okay.
So
But
I had a 5-year plan.
you had a 5-year plan and now you've 3 times it so 3x
Yes.
on that. And I imagine, so now have you continued to have kids so that you can coach them throughout high school then, or are they pretty much long gone?
Well, I wanted to, but we had twins at the end, and my husband said when they start coming in twos, it's time to stop. So, I think I'm winning by being around all these other kids and getting to coach them. So I think there was a master plan out there that I wasn't aware of, and it's all
Okay.
worked out.
No, that's great. I think it's really interesting, the different people's paths, and sound like you're on the right path. So now, anyway, let's get into a little bit about what are some of the things that make your program successful. What are the intentional things that you lay out in your program that are going to help players get to be better players, bring the team together, and help them succeed?
Well, first of all, I run NoCut. So right now we're in our freshman season, and we have 73 girls on the team out of a class of 310. The largest number I've ever had was 4 years ago. We had 93 girls on the team, and we only have 6 courts, so it makes it challenging but doable. So I think making every girl feel valued on our team, no matter if they're number 1 or number 73 on the team, there's a place for them. And I think that has helped build a community of people that are very supportive. I've been able to get parents to volunteer coach, go through all the process that they have to go through at a Catholic school to be eligible to volunteer. And it has just grown beyond my wildest dreams to have that many girls out there playing.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges with no cut? Because it's been actually, I'm sort of de facto no cut because I'm desperate to get players. But I've been in programs where because of court space, it's just not practical for us to run a no cut program. So what are some of the challenges that come along with no cut, and what does the coach have to sort of sign up for if they're going to do that?
Well, I think you have to get creative in your how you run practices, and you have to realize that not everyone has to come to practice every day. Obviously, the higher ranked kids, the kids that are going to be in the lineup with the points that are going to count, they need to be there the most often. At our school, it's a college prep, so it's very academic. So our girls in the freshman program come 2 to 3 days a week, and that's perfect for them because they're acclimating to a new school, new academics. They're driving from all over parts of the valley, and that works at our school. We have a big grass area next to the courts with nice shady ash trees, so we run stations out there. So I've run up to 10, 12 stations through the 6 courts and the grass area picnic table. So utilizing other spaces on campus as well. In the spring, when our varsity and JV goes, we have a yoga room, we have a spin room, and so I've been able to use those to do some cross training with the kids that they really, really enjoy, especially those that have been playing tennis a long time.
Yeah, that's great. I happen to have an interesting space next to mine where we have basketball courts, And so the nets just happen to be about 42 feet away from each other. So I've strung up a net on the basketball courts, and we call that court Winterfell. So as a as
Perfect.
a as a nod to Game of Thrones, a show I've almost never watched. But anyway, so yeah, getting creative with space is really a great thing, because if you can keep them active, that's great. But if they're off court and bored, then you're going to have behavior problems. And and so I think it's really cool that you're there and you're allowing, or you're scheduling in differently for different players. That's just something that's not part of my makeup. This is a varsity high school sport, show up every day kind of a guy. And I want to pour into those younger players 5 days a week, whether or not they're going to be in the lineup or not. So I think there's a place for everybody that way too. And I have to admit, I was a little taken aback by this new team that I'm coaching when they said, hey, we're a little thrown off by this showing up every day thing. And I was like, oh yeah,
Okay.
it's something we call commitment. So, all right. So
Oh yeah.
now,
Our
okay.
varsity players do show up on the JV, but then we have in the spring we have a JV 2 and 3 team that they're the more social kids, and I can get a couple of matches maybe for them, but then they play like junior team tennis matches when I travel away. So we're an all-girls school, so we don't have the boys to contend with the course.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Now, it sounds interesting where you have different levels at different times of the year. That's a little different than I'm used to. So, is that true in your region, that you have these competitions where they can, they're going to play their varsity at this time and their freshmen at this time? It's in different seasons?
Not every school has freshman tennis, and when I first started at Xavier, we didn't have it. But I was coaching privately these other kids that were able to play freshman tennis. I thought, our school, we have a lot of elite athletes, and I thought, why don't we have a freshman tennis program? So I went to my AD and said, can we start this? And she said, absolutely. And we found out in the East Valley, there's about 10 or 12 schools that have freshman programs. So not every school has freshman tennis.
Okay.
But to me, it's a great way. These kids can come in and play freshman year right at the beginning. And then you can use it to develop and build your program, especially at other schools where maybe they don't get some of the national players or high-ranked sectional players like I do. I've seen coaches just really build their program, starting with the freshman team.
Yeah, that's really a dynamic idea. And I think that's also a way for to solve the problem of kids who quit because they don't get to play as much, or they don't get to play a high enough level or whatnot. So that's really a great thing. Now, so what are some of the things that you do that you think are fairly unique from what other coaches do?
Well, since our number in freshmen is so large, I'll put the girls in a color group and put 7 girls in each group, because I can travel 14 girls when I drive away. I drive the bus too.
Okay.
And so I try and take as many kids as I can with me. So yesterday, the school we played only had 3 girls that were eligible, 2 that weren't. And I traveled 14 girls. So I can use their courts to have my girls play matches against each other. Because we obviously, in freshman season, we don't have court space for challenge matches. We do a round robin at the beginning, get them in order the best we can. But then it adds opportunity when we travel elsewhere. And within that color group, they pick a captain, a co-captain. We try and get them to do with team bonding, to try and bring it down to a more special feel for them. We encourage them to eat lunch once a week together. It's interesting, the girls that start out in a color group, many times by the time they graduate at Xavier, they're best friends. And then it all started with freshman tennis. And so that's really, it's neat to see these kids form a bond.
And you know, it's interesting because, you know, you're taking something that could be seen as a negative, right? Oh, the other school only has 3 girls, you know, and that could be built up. Oh, it's not worth it, right? Well, you're solving that problem. You're making it worth it. So, and killing 2 birds with the one stone, right? Where, you know, you're solving your own court space issue by traveling. And that's also,
Right.
so definitely being creative is amazing. Do you have any mentors that you've worked with that have kind of helped, you know, help you come up with these ideas? I mean, it's almost like Arizona has this thing where everybody's super creative, like a Jim Refkin type, right? So that Refkin guy came up with so many great
Well,
ideas.
yeah, different. I think for me, I had to move from California during high school. I was a softball player, never played tennis in my life, and moved over here. And I found my one new best friend was from Newport Beach, California, and she introduced me to tennis. So my very first year, I'd only been playing tennis 2 weeks and got cut from the team. And so it was a time in my life when I really needed a connection into the school, friends, and all that type of thing. So it really affected me in my own personal life. And so I guess if you think of who mentored me, I think it was a result of something that I had to endure during high school.
Yeah,
I
that's
ended
interesting.
up getting quitting softball
We're
for tennis.
and we're similar that way. So my story's the other way around. I had a really tough growing up period of time, and then senior year I became fully conscious and decided to try out for the tennis team. I'd been playing on and off, didn't make the team, and the way that happened was so disappointing to me. It was very poor coaching. I mean, to this day, I just realized it was a poor coaching decision. The coach didn't know who I was, what I was dealing with, you know, or any of that. And so anyway, so I got cut from the team, and that's fine. But what it did is it really motivated me to want to coach. And so my whole life I've been trying to prove that guy wrong by by coaching
Yeah, I mean, you look at,
completely
yeah,
differently than that, you know. So you know, and then the other interesting thing
but as
was,
far as mentors,
yeah. So I mean, I think we're similar in that way, and I'd be interested to know how many good coaches have had to endure some kind of um, setback, some kind of adversity that motivated them to want to coach better because the adversity that they faced came from their
oh, I think there's a lot of that out there. And I think, I look at all those girls that I coach, and you see they're all dealing with issues. And I always tell them that somebody else's life may look perfect, but I guarantee you it's not. And everyone is having to deal hardships in their life. And so I have, a very compassionate heart for these young women, and I think it's a very critical time in their development, fitting in high school.
yes. And you know, and I'm all about like creating a space where they can belong to something. I mean, I wouldn't call it a safe
Right.
space because I'm a pretty sarcastic guy, um, but it is a space. It's a space where they can come together and belong to something that's so vital. All right. So that's kind of to me, that's also gets into one of the best practices, you know, of all tennis entities is creating community, right? And so, you know, the
Mhm.
creative things that you've done are doing that as well, and that's pretty amazing. So, should we start talking about what's going on the national scene with USTA, or you'd want to talk a little bit more about your program?
Sure. No, that's fine.
Okay. So now, how long have you been on the national committee?
So I'm finishing up my 5th year. So I was on the task force the first 2 years. So Katrina Adams put a lot of efforts into the high school space and felt that that was an area where we could get better nationally as a USPA. And developing practice plans for the coaches, resources for the coaches, reaching out and offering assistance. And they're realizing these are your future league players. We need to develop more out-of-season play for these type of kids. Your typical high school tennis player, the number they told us, Doc, 5 years ago, 80% of them do not play in the out-season. They put the racket down, which is mind-boggling. But there's rural towns. There's a lot of different circumstances going on. And what I find are most high school players, they don't want to go play the high-ranked tournaments, the kids that train at the academies. They love playing,